getting there. Oh, let me do this. There we go. All right. We are live. Good morning. Welcome, Next Opportunity Social family. We're here again Wednesday morning. I'm Rachele Wright. I'm excited to talk about this topic with you all today, joined by JuJuan Buford, of course. And yeah, we're talking about making it through the long haul with entrepreneurship, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and what that looks like in a few different varieties, but also then we're gonna kind of tie in a little bit around productivity tips because that goes with it, right? If you're gonna make it in this long haul, you do have to scale to a certain extent, and how do you do that to a level that allows you to still be productive and as you're scaling where you need to be putting your energy.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I've been thinking critically about this topic, particularly over the last week or so, because quite frankly, I've been having a lot of conversations, of course, with my peer group, right, about what we do next during the pandemic, having those type of conversations. How do we build? Quite frankly, get prepared for the next one, right? For those of us who've been in business for a while, I've said it time and time again. 2008 was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because when 2020 rolled around, it was like, okay, I've seen this before, right? But as opposed to just pivoting and being in a situation where you know what to do, how do you make sure that when the next quote unquote pandemic, metaphorically speaking, transpires again, how do you make sure you thrive, right? Because we're going to have some challenges, inevitable when it comes to the economy, right? And it's a tough conversation to have, number one, when you're first starting out as an entrepreneur, because quite frankly, let's just be real. I mean, we can have these high convoluted discussions if we want to, but the bottom convoluted that is discussions if we want to, but the bottom line is when you're first starting out, you're trying to get a transaction, right? You're trying to lean in and get your first customer. And depending on what stage you are when you're building a business, your day to day is still every single day. Where's my next customer? Where's my next client? How am I going to quote unquote pay the bills, right? How am I going to pay the cost to build this, to keep this business going? And how am I going to make sure this business pays me enough, is profitable enough for me to take care of my family and my responsibilities, right? And so it's a conundrum, but it's a conundrum that you have to address, like you said before, if you're going to scale, if you're going to grow, if you're going to thrive, right? In my humble opinion, and like I said, I don't like candy coating this stuff. Entrepreneurship is too hard to just survive.
Yeah.
I just believe that. If
Yeah.
you're just about surviving, check to check, day to day, just getting by, get the job, right?
Yeah.
But for the amount of work, energy, and effort you have to pour in to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to be putting together a game plan that will allow you to thrive, right? Be at a point where you've really built an asset and a brand that allows you to do the things that you're really passionate about, that you enjoy doing, but also allows you to have a lifestyle where you're not waking up every single day thinking about where's my next buck or dollars coming from, right? Um, and so, how do you go about doing that, right? How do you go about cultivating that long-term thinking, that mindset? And there's an interesting video that's out there by Simon Sinek. He talks about this a lot, actually, right? And he talks about building a business not for the sake of profit, building the business not for the sake of where's my next buck coming from, or building a business for the sake of just getting money. But how do you build a business in such a way where the priority is not necessarily to be the number one in a particular product category, but to be able to play the game indefinitely?
Right.
Right? What resources do you need to have in place? What type of thinking and habits do you need to cultivate if the name of the game isn't to achieve a goal, right? A singular goal, but to just be able to continue playing day in and day out, week in and week out, month out, month out, year in and year out, decade in, decade out. And if you're really thinking long-term and generational wealth, which we like to talk about a lot here, right? How do you build your business and play the game to last generations? Right? What type of habits do you need to inculcate? What do you have to do?
Yeah.
What type of systems do you have to put in place? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an important discussion to have, because if you're not having that discussion, if you're not thinking about it long term, you will look up 5 years from now and be in the exact same situation you were today. The calendar will have moved, but your business will have not have moved.
Right.
It's just not a good look. It's not a good feeling.
Yeah. That kind of ties into what we talked about last week too, of how just not always, the idea of like having more money, getting more money, and being given more money isn't necessarily what's going to solve the problems that you're having. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about right now, of like because the answer to those questions that you're saying we need to ask ourselves, 9 times out of 10, the answer should not be money, right?
Right.
There should be other things that you're implementing or organizing or putting in place that, yes, a result is that you should be able to have money to do these things. But when the end game is like just to make this money, it's not a good enough goal. To be honest, it's just not, right? I hear about it all the time of like, it's not that it's a bad goal. It's not that it's a bad goal to have that, but when that becomes your sole focus, it sometimes can be more challenging to get that goal. But let's say you do get to that goal, you're going to feel very unfulfilled when you haven't had other things put in place, after the fact. So yeah.
Yeah, you fall into, okay, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You achieve the goal, what's next? You
Right.
achieve the objective, what's next? You earned enough to pay your bills for the week, the month, the quarter, the year. What's next? Right? I'm thinking about too, I remember when the pandemic first began and you had this rush, right? People were rushing to do these quick businesses to kind of take advantage of the turmoil and the fear and anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had individuals starting up these mass businesses, and then you had people starting up these health elixir juice drink businesses. I mean, we already know what it is, right?
Yeah.
The next special vitamin water Slurpee drink that will fix your health overnight. You had these gimmicks, these trend businesses that were starting up. Once again, it's case in point, right? It wasn't long-term thinking. It was, how can I quickly make some money, right? And then when the trend was up, when the gig was up, now those voices are very quiet now. I don't see them on Instagram so much anymore. I don't see them on Facebook. And I definitely don't see them on LinkedIn anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's fascinating, right? I think a lot about how this pandemic really put things in perspective. It really did, right? The individuals whom we look down upon, to be real, the individuals whom we typically, and I'm saying we figuratively, right? Because I certainly don't look down upon. I know what it's like to work a restaurant job. I've worked in customer service at a bakery and in a grocery store. I've been in those type of occupations, thankfully, for a short period of time early on in life. And didn't those people become the most important people on the face of the earth?
Exactly.
Right? The people who deliver our food, the people who make sure that the items get to the store, get to our households, the things that we need just to kind of function on a daily basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's fascinating, right? And once again, as long-term thinking helps you to think critically about your business from that standpoint. What are you going to do to become indispensable? Not just today, but 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now, right? What long-term thinking and thinking about your business like this, number one, it helps you avoid the shiny object syndrome, right? Where you're not bouncing from one ideal or one trendy thing to the other, right? Because that shiny object syndrome gets you a lot in trouble. You spend a lot of energy, you spend a lot of time. Oftentimes you ruin or convolute your brand. I hear a lot of business owners right now and entrepreneurs who are very perplexed about how to resolve the issue of people asking them, what do you do? So they have this body of work. They've sold these products, they've sold these services, they've done different things over the last 2 years, over the last 10 years. And that's a huge problem when you have people in the community who really still don't know who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
Right. That's a sure sign that you really haven't been thinking long term about your business and about your brand. like what your value prop really is. You haven't really made yourself um, indispensable because you have people who know who you are, right?
Right.
And so this thinking of not just working to build money, but working to build something that's going to last, it helps you avoid that situation, right? Um, when you have this type of thinking, you build your business in a way that it's always responsive to the market, right? As opposed to just being responsive to orthodoxy, right? This is how we've always done it. This is how we've always accomplished things. This is how we've gotten paid, basically. We've gotten very comfortable because the business is working for us and it's allowing us to live this lifestyle. But the moment you take your business and it becomes simply a piggy bank for your lifestyle, as opposed to a business that is predicated upon service to others and meeting the needs of the market, sooner or later the goose is cooked, right?
Yeah.
Bad things are going to start happening. The next time, once again, the market shifts, next time conditions change, people's appetites and their needs change, and you haven't changed right along with it, it's problematic, right? Because I know what some people are thinking when they're listening to this. I know I thought this 20 years ago when individuals started having conversations with me with saying, JuJuan, look, you need to start thinking about working on your business as opposed to just in it. You need to start thinking about scaling your business. And I'm thinking, I'm just a one person. I'm an investment advisor. No, I need to go out and get some clients. I need to help people invest some money. I need to help protect people's insurance interests and acquire capital, all those other different things, right? But these things matter, right? Um, and then how you treat people. When you're thinking long term, you realize that not every argument's worth winning. Not every conflict is worth winning or even getting involved in, right? You become very choosy about when and how you stand your ground, because sometimes you're going to need to. And you begin to kind of understand there's some things you just need to dust off your shoulders, right? And
Mm-hmm.
keep it moving. Also, how you even, how, not only how you treat customers and people in general, but how you treat your own employees,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I think that's especially important because even now, where, unemployment is high and situationally people are out of work,
Mm-hmm.
but there are a lot of other companies who have pivoted quickly or adjusted what they need to, and they are hiring, right? And they're hiring remotely. They're hiring with flexibility because they understand life is challenging. And if you are not keeping your employees front of mind and understanding the costs that go into having to keep replacing people, the cost of finding good talent, right, and retaining that good talent, people will leave. I have had friends who have left their job, quit their job during this pandemic, and found phenomenally better work still in the middle of this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think that someone right now is not going to leave your company because there's a pandemic or there's an issue, like societally what's happening, because everyone's just thankful to have a job, that's just not the reality of
Mm-hmm.
it. People are finding better work. I mean, it depends on what industry it is and it depends on what you're doing. But
Mm-hmm.
we're starting to see now more of these companies who have pivoted and switched and adjust, and they're willing to sacrifice or put more energy into their employees, because I don't understand why that's a complicated topic. I really don't understand why it's a complicated thing to treat your people well. Why would you want to keep finding new people? I just don't. I understand the costs and things like that, but with their talent, with their expertise, if you really lean into these people, yes, they might cost you more money to keep them around, but they should also be bringing you more money, right? So it should be fine. Yeah.
So it can be difficult. So when I'm talking to entrepreneurs about these type of discussions, right? At least from my experience, a lot of the entrepreneurs I interact with were forged and born in corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some that have a totally different track, right? But I'm talking about the ones that come out of corporate America, meaning you've had a quote unquote good paying job, whatever that means, right? Nowadays, um, you've come through, you have a particular training, you have a particular skill set, you have particular expertise, And chances are, if you make the transition from corporate America to entrepreneur, that means you are an overachiever,
Yeah.
right? That's what it basically means. 9 times out of 10, you were an overachiever, and it finally dawned on you the job security is an oxymoron, and that you were basically building somebody else's dream, and that if you were willing to loan your talent, work ethic, and the hours and hours and hours, take a slither of those hours and give it to yourself, you could build something really great, right? And so what ends up happening is you start a business. And one of the biggest mistakes individuals make is they assume that when they're bringing somebody on, when they're onboarding someone, that someone has the same life experience, that
Right.
someone has the same level of expertise, that someone has the same level of grit or specialization that you may have, and that's just not the case, right? And corporate America, you are rewarded the ideal that if I want it done right, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to become more informed than everyone. I'm going to become more skilled than everyone. I'm going to develop this expertise. I'm going to develop this niche skill that makes me invaluable to that corporate environment, right? But when you start up a business, you got to have a different brain. Yeah, you have this expertise, but you also have to put systems in place that duplicate. You have to give people the freedom and the flexibility to execute. Not there's more than one way to get somewhere, to get something done. And you can't be micromanaging, hoarding, and not appreciate the value that an employee or employees are bringing to the table because they're not dressed up with the same attire or have the same veneer that you have, right? I'm not saying don't have standards. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be not adhere to KPIs and RGAs and certain things that are required for your business to be successful. But you have to understand that people are coming to your business once again developmentally at a different place, right? And you have to be willing to develop that talent. You have to be willing to pour into that talent. You have to be responsive to that talent. You have to also understand that, look, you're the business owner. You're the entrepreneur. This is so important when you're a micro business owner. You're just starting out. No one is going to be more committed to your business than you. Don't expect anything different, right? You're losing your mind if you think you're going to onboard someone and they're going to be there from 5 a.m. until 12 p.m. at night and not be compensated extra. It's just, that's rare. That's so rare, right? And the only way that happens is if your employee or your partner can see the business delivering the lifestyle they want for themselves, right? I think another thing to business owners, particularly when you're first starting out, and once again, if you have that corporate mindset, you forget that at the end of the day, you're providing a service to the employee. You got to remember that. You have to serve your employees. Your business, you have to be able to paint a picture, articulate a vision, have a conversation with that employee and show them how by working with me, you can achieve A, B, C, and D, whatever that may be. Well, that may be professional and business development, personal development, or that may be the income that you desire over the course of time, maybe equity. There's more than one way to compensate people. Sometimes people just want recognition. They want the ability to build something or work on a project from scratch, and how you can provide them the freedom to do that. You got to think critically about that, right? And that's why it can be complicated, right? Because it's not simply a matter of just execution and proper paperwork. It's mindset, right? And that's why a lot of micro business owners have a difficult time. It's just not understanding that. And you hit the nail right on the head. If someone's been with you for 6 months to a year, it's going to be, you've poured time into them.
Right.
You've acculturated them into your business, right? You've made them part, you haven't made them part of the cement, but they're definitely in the mix. And to extricate them from that situation or for them to leave because you treated them like a cog as opposed to a person, man, that cost is tremendous. It's tremendous.
We're also seeing that. I'm also seeing that amongst people I know too in their current jobs, where that's how they're maybe back to work now, or they maybe have been working remotely, and now things are setting in, and that's what they're feeling like. So they're just like that. Yes, this is a difficult time, and it's an extremely difficult time for business, but to choose to ignore this area of caring for your employees in the way that, and not being transparent about what's happening and what's going on and how things are evolving. And even just honestly being transparent around the fact that you might not have answers to anything right now, but just being transparent about the fact that, yeah, we're working through things and we don't really know answers around them yet, but please keep that, just we're working on it. Right. I'm seeing companies that are just going silent and doing nothing. And then you just leave people to sit there and think, make their own assumptions, about whatever it is you're doing. But yeah, I just think that's so important to, if you're an entrepreneur who has employees right now, especially if they've been people who have been with you throughout all of this, but certainly for any period of time, this is also one of your biggest assets moving forward, because if you haven't pivoted or you're needing to pivot and you're needing to adjust, you now have people who are ready to do it and qualified. You don't have to train, like they're ready. They know,
Oh yeah, you have a lot of talented individuals who have been displaced. All you have to do is jump on LinkedIn and it becomes readily apparent.
Yeah.
You have a lot of individuals who before would not have ever thought or considered working for a small business.
Yeah.
That are now definitely open to the opportunity to do so, as opposed to working for a corporation that once again just views them as an ID number. One of the habits that as entrepreneurs we all have to inculcate is taking the time to actually have these discussions with ourselves. Literally setting aside the time to think critically about what's required to be successful. Because I get it, right? I'm no different than anyone else. I wake up oftentimes 5 o'clock in the morning. And the moment my eyes open, I'm on 10. Like I jump out of bed like a rocket. And because of what I've done the previous night and writing down my to-do list and knowing what I need to do to execute, it's purposeful. It's by design, right? I don't want to wake up in the morning and have to reflect on and try to figure out what I need to do. I want to be able to just wake up and execute, right? But you still have to set aside the time to actually think through and critically assess where you are today, but also where you need to be tomorrow, right? You have to literally set aside time. Warren Buffett, and this is where I really got this from. I can't remember which book. It wasn't Snowfall. It was another book in an interview that I read with him where he's featured prominently. And, it's a habit he inculcated a long time ago where he literally sets aside time to read, to learn, and to think, right? Because here's the thing. If you're on 10 24/7, right? It's like lions chasing a gazelle, right? The lions are not faster than the gazelle. That's not their game. They play the ambush game. They chase, they harass, and they harangue. They wait for an anaerobic condition to set in that gazelle's muscles where the legs start getting tired, where the gazelle starts getting fatigued. Because you can't keep that up. You can't keep that frenetic running, sprinting pace up, but for so long before you burn out. And then that's eventually when they catch the gazelle, right? You have 4 or 5 of them ambushing, chasing, harassing, haranguing, the fatigue sets in and they get you. Well, it's the exact same thing. You have to set aside time to replenish yourself. If you're running like with gazelle urgency all the time, you're going to burn out. If you're just caught up in the day-to-day, you really do have to set aside, I would say at minimum 30 minutes a day, just to critically sit back and think, okay, what am I doing today? Obviously, I got to get these KPIs. I have to talk to people. I have to close. I have to take on clients. I got to do all these requirements, these things, the emails, phone calls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what am I also doing today where I'm putting a system or I'm putting some type of tool in place, or I'm going to accomplish one task that will eliminate some stress, or that will put me in a position where 6 months from now, my business is further along than it is today. Or will put me in a situation where when the next quote unquote challenge comes up, market downturn, whatever the case may be, right? Life happens, death, disability too, right? All these things. What do I have in place in my business to make sure that it still continues to operate seamlessly and I don't run myself to the ground in the process, right? So that's one of the habits that I'd strongly encourage entrepreneurs to adopt.
I
Right?
think too, what happens when I see people who don't do that, and I will admit I've gone through phases of this for myself where, especially as you spoke about in the beginning, most entrepreneurs are coming out of a 9 to 5 to do what they're going to do, but they attack their business like this 9 to 5, right? Realizing that,
Mhm.
you have this great opportunity where you don't actually have to do that, right? But because this is all you know, you think that this is how this works. Entrepreneurship is different. You're going to have 12-hour days and 10-hour days, and then you're going to have other days that are 2-hour days. Like, that's just the way it works sometimes, And but if you try and fit it into this bubble of a 9 to 5, not realizing that that's also not how that company that you were working for run. That's how you worked as an employee. Well, you're not an employee anymore. You're running
Mhm.
the show. So you can't come at your day like in the same process that you would of a 9 to 5. And that is what I find too, is when people do that for too long, thinking they just got to get their tasks done for the day, they hit burnout in entrepreneurship 10 times faster because they're not getting anywhere. They're just doing
Mhm.
things for the sake of doing them because they feel like an employee in their business, and that's just not how it works.
It's so interesting that you share that, right? So this is something that I kind of adopted from Tim Ferriss. I read it in Tools of Titans, and a couple other books like Unstoppable. Um, there's a couple other books where I kind of pulled different pieces. And something that I ask myself every morning, something that I spend some time asking and thinking critically about every night is, what are the top 3 activities that if I do these activities right, if I do these things on a daily basis will make the biggest difference in my business,
Yeah.
right? And typically it's in 2 categories. Number one, it's the top 3 things that, be transparent, that I need to do to be profitable today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these things shouldn't change. They should be like the furniture. Like, it shouldn't change. It should be like furniture. This helps you avoid what you just talked about, where you can be doing a lot of work, spending a lot of energy, but you're really not getting work done, right?
Right.
It's a physics um, principle, right? You can be pushing on a wall hard as hell. I mean, spending lots of energy, but that wall isn't moving. You're really not doing work. You're just spending energy, right? You do the
Mm-hmm.
exact same thing in your business. And so a habit that I have is to literally write these things down, right? So for me, I know that number one, the one thing I have to do on a daily basis is create new relationships, right? New relationships have to be made. If I'm not making relationships, I'm out of business. Giving myself the opportunity to have a conversation with people and be able to discover or uncover who is my ideal prospect, or my buyer, find my buyer persona, right? Whatever language you want to use, right? I need to do that on a daily basis. So for me, it's automatic, right? I automatically go to LinkedIn. At some point in time of the day, I'm going to spend about an hour of time introducing myself or engaging, not selling, not pitching, just simply introducing myself to individuals,
Mm-hmm.
right? So whether my goal is typically 20 people a day, right? 20 new people a day, new relationships. Um, Writing 30 minutes a day, right? Um, Trying to get it up to an hour. But I know if I write 30 minutes to an hour a day, that's my place of power. That's my strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's ultimately what's going to set me free. That, for me, this is what this entrepreneurship thing is all about, putting myself in position to enjoy doing that, which is what I really love to do, right? So spending time doing that, perfecting my craft, getting better at that. Hour of time dedicated to learning, whether that's 2 30-minute podcasts or if that's sitting down with a good book, right? These are the things that I do on a daily basis to quote unquote work on myself, which indirectly is working on my business, right?
Yeah.
If I know if I do these things will eventually scale all of my other efforts, right? Make me the writing helps me become an SME expert. So I'm writing about specific topics, right? Which requires research and requires I'm going to put that content out there. It better be quality content, right? So I can attract the eyeballs and the talent that I want. Um, the learning, once again, make sure that I'm a sharper person, the new relationships, right? These are the things that I do the work on my business. But what are the things that you should be doing the work on your business, right? What you have to identify your KPIs, right? For me, I keep this conversation simple with most entrepreneurs because there's certain KPIs that we all have to do, right? You can't get around that. You know, one of the KPIs is how many times are you going to invite people to learn about your business? And I don't care if you're sending out emails. I don't care if you're sending out social media posts. If you're picking up the phone call, old school cold calling. The bottom line is how many times are you going to introduce someone, some new person to your business? If you're not doing that, you're out of business, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're selling used toothpicks, lingerie, cars, whatever. The next question you should be asking yourself as an entrepreneur is how many times is someone going to see a full-on presentation or have an opportunity to learn 100% about what it is that I do, where I put them in a position to truly make an educated decision, right? So how many times is that happening where people have the opportunity to make an educated decision, whether that be via Zoom? People are getting back to belly conversations, obviously. So doing an appointment like that, or maybe you've created some type of video and you want to make sure a person sees that video from front to back, right? How many times is that happening per day? Because once again, if people are not being educated about, bring awareness of your business is one thing, but now they have to be educated about what you do. How many times is that happening per day, right? How many times are you creating a happy client, particularly if you're in the service industry, right? Where do you have time dedicated in your day, in your week, in your month to follow up with individuals who took their hard-earned currency, gave it to you, right? With an expectation of something. How many times are you following up to make sure that expectation is met?
Yeah.
Right? And then last but not least, what are you doing on a daily basis to acquire referrals? And part of that process is creating happy clients because happy people tend to refer people to you. But you need to have a systemic way of following up with individuals, a systemic way of engaging people in such a way where you're acquiring referrals. You know, you have to wake up when you're thinking about long term and you're thinking about hacks, right? And I know we're talking about mindset here as opposed to technical hacks or technical things you can do. But I promise you, the mindset, if your mind is right, you'll find the tools, right? You'll find the tools. There's a plethora of tools out there. I encourage everyone, shameless plug, contact Miss Rachele Wilson. She has plenty of tools for you, right? She knows all about the tools. But the ideal is not, you're not chasing 3,000 transactions. You're trying to create 3,000 fans, 3,000 advocates, 3,000 people out there in the universe who love your stinking, sweaty, dirty shirt, who will tell everyone about you, who love what you do. They tell folks about you, whether they are being monetarily rewarded or not for it, right? And of course, it's in your interest. People tend to refer more when they find when there's a monetary incentive, but you get the point, right? The bottom line is that's the game that you're playing, right? It's not about, once again, going out here and chasing a couple of dollars and seeing a price tag. You're chasing relationships. If you have the relationship, you'll always be earning income. And if you have the relationship, you'll have an endless stream of referrals and you'll never have to wake up stressing about where is my next dollar coming from. That is the worst stress and anxiety in the world, is waking up and asking yourself, man, where's my next buck coming from? It is nothing like waking up and before you even open up the moment you open your inbox, you have 5 or 6 people saying, when can we set an appointment? When can I acquire it? That is the best feeling in the world. But you get there by chasing relationships. If you're going to chase anything, you want to be chasing and inculcating relationships.
So. Yeah, I agree with that. I think also too, when I think of that from, it was interesting. You said like right off the bat of when you're chasing those relationships, when you're cultivating those relationships, you shoot for like 20 people a day on LinkedIn, right? And that takes you about an hour. I don't know anywhere in the world else you can start cultivating 20 relationships with anyone in an hour, right? Yes. So understand, when we talk about productivity, we talk about tools. What is the fastest way that you can, not just the fastest way that you can do that, but LinkedIn, doing things like that allows you to scale that ability to do that, right? You can only scale your physical presence at places and time for as much time as you have in a day. That's it, right? You can't, that's
Yes.
it. Like you hit a cap. So I think it's also important too that you're taking inventory. I urge people on a quarterly basis just because of the landscape of how society is and the landscape of how our digital era um, evolves, because it's evolving much faster than it keeps, it's compounding on itself, right? So everything keeps evolving much faster, of realizing, is there a better way you can do something than you were doing it before, right? Is there a more efficient way, a more thorough way, whatever, that's just going to just allow you to scale that effort more? Because I do say that just because something's broke doesn't mean you have to fix it, but maybe maybe you don't realize it is broken, it could, or it's cracked, and you need to seal that crack with a different solution, right? So, not being afraid to also stop what you're doing right now and assessing what that is, and shifting to what needs to happen instead. I hear people all the time, especially when I'm working with clients in marketing, of like, people will come to me for strategy, and they will have put all their energy or eggs in this one basket, something like Instagram. It's not really working for them, but they're also really hesitant to abandon it because they've spent all this energy on it, and they don't want to stop doing something that they've spent all this time on, not realizing that this isn't working. So you need to switch and, adjust it. So just not being afraid to, it's not, I don't want you to think of it like abandoning, but not being afraid to pivot and shift what you've done into a completely different direction if that's going to be more useful for you, and understanding that that doesn't mean you failed in a certain area of what you were trying to do, but that just, so it's important to like reassess quarterly, I think, almost sometimes, especially if that is what you're doing, if you are especially a service-based provider, of like, are these efforts working? Because if I keep going at this pace, am I going to be able to continue at this pace like that?
Yeah. So you can't be wed to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of you that has to be emotionally detached,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was having a conversation with a business owner yesterday, very smart person. Um, I respect their intellect quite a bit. And when I have conversations with them, they're always, in my humble opinion, over analyzing. And I'm keen to do this too, right? Over analyze things, try to spend too much time reflecting on the why.
Mm-hmm.
When at the end of the day, there's got to be a party who's an entrepreneur that says, look, this is not a question of right or wrong, right? This is just assume you're doing things, you're doing something that actually helps society, right? I don't want people to listen to this correctly and get the wrong message. It's not a question of right or wrong, right? It's a question of consequence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that's what we're talking about, consequence. And you have to be wed to the consequences, right? At the end of the day, you have to execute. You can't be successful and make excuses at the same time, right? And there's got to be a part of your brain that understands that if you have taken yourself down a path, it doesn't matter how much money or time that you spent in it, if it's not working, it's not working. Now you got to bake test it. You got to give things time to kind of mature and grow. It's like baking a cake. But at some point, you have to look up and say, okay, this path isn't working. I have to pivot. I have to take a different direction, right? You know, right now it may seem kind of silly to some of us, right? But I remember real estate agents. I remember attorneys. I remember tax and accounting professionals. I remember certain professionals I was having conversations with 6 months ago, a year ago, talking about you're going to have to learn how to operate in the virtual world, and they scoffed and they laughed.
Yeah.
Right.
I know.
And, you know, and you don't have a choice, right? You have to adopt a different mindset. And here's the thing, guess what? Zoom, what we're doing now, there's going to be some type of innovation in the market. It's inevitable. Get ready for it. There's going to be some type of innovation in the market. There's going to be another shift. There's going to be another change. and you're going to have to adapt to that too,
Yeah.
right? Um, it just simply, it is what it is. You know, for me, to ask me to do a video like this 5 years ago, never would have done it. All right. Never would have done it. Now, I don't know how my business could exist without creating content like this from time to time on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram or on Facebook or LinkedIn, whatever tool you're using, right? This is where we're going. We're going to a digital audio visual world, and you better get there fast, quick, and in a hurry, right?
Yeah.
YouTube is going to dominate for quite some time until something comes along and replaces. Matter of fact, I think YouTube is the number one. Isn't it the number one utilized search?
It's the number two because Google owns it. Google's number one, YouTube's
That's right.
number two search
Right.
engine. So, but it's like right behind it because
Right.
yeah, it's a search engine. That's essentially what it is.
So yeah, that willingness to kind of, because here's the thing, you're not abandoning, and this is why long term is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking long term, right? Thinking about how do I stay in the game? When you're thinking about that, you know, how do I make sure my business is relevant 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years from now? You don't get wed to certain little things that aren't going to make the big difference in the world, right? 5, 10 years from now. You're not wed to the tactic. You're not wed to the strategy. You're not wed to certain things. You're wed to how do I make sure my business is relevant over the course of time? That
Yeah.
instead of being, um, because it impacts your thinking and how you approach certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, distractions, right?
There's a lot of them.
Distractions. There's a lot of them. And once again, I know you're looking, well, what do you use? What technology are you using? I was listening to some podcast yesterday and it made my head hurt. Like they were mentioning all these different tools that are out there to prevent you from being distracted. And then I was like, well, the tools are distracting.
Right.
You know,
I'll be super transparent and honest. Yes, my world is in digital marketing. My world is in social media. And yesterday I deleted all I deleted Facebook, I deleted LinkedIn, I deleted Twitter, I deleted Instagram, even though I realize I'm probably gonna have to put that one back. But or take the distraction is not let me find something else so I don't go on to these things. Distraction is you get rid of that tool for however you need to so that you can be more mindful about the work that you're doing. Yeah, there are timers and this and that and all kinds of things that will yell at you at your computer telling you to stop doing this or that. None of them matter because you can turn them off. You have to motivation is not enough, right? Motivation to be is not enough. You're going to have to push through that motivation to just do that. Yeah, I think that there are too many tools to help you not get distracted. It's the distraction is the tools. So just find a way to, if it's out of sight, it really is out of mind right now in what we're doing, in the way that we operate. So you're not going to forget that Facebook exists just because you delete it off your phone. You're just going to be spending a lot more mindful time on it because it's only now accessible on your desktop and maybe you don't really use it that way. So that's my best tip for tools. Get rid of some of these tools, that's actually going to help make you more productive.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have these huge brains that we're blessed with. Evolution blessed us with this, which is why we're the number one organism, people would argue, on the planet Earth, right? We dominate everything because these brains. And it's a blessing and a curse, right? Our brains allow us to focus on a million different things all at once, right? Or at least have some type of awareness of it. So that allowed us to survive, but it also is counterproductive too. And you have to understand that don't beat yourself up for being distracted, right? Don't clown yourself. All of us are distracted the majority of the time, right? You just have to understand that not being distracted is skill trade. And I like to think about not necessarily what tools, but I think about what habits, what strategies can I employ to limit my distractions, right? I think about the mind like this, the conscious mind. not the unconscious mind, but the conscious mind, right? And I think about the conscious mind like a fishbowl, right? The fishbowl has a finite amount of space in it. Only so many things can fit in it, right? And I think about blue marbles, which are the distractions. Blue marbles are the things that make you sad. Blue marbles are the things that take energy from you. Blue marbles are the things that just detract from what you're trying to accomplish, right? Wasted energies. And, so, and then you have the red marbles. The red marbles are the marbles that they're your passions. They're the things that do help you move the ball forward. They're the things that do pour into you, that edify you, that grow you, that help you become more effective at your trade and more effective at building your business, right? And I think about the red marbles like my goals. I think about the red marbles as the key things I need to do on a daily basis to be successful. I think about the red marbles as whatever my affirmations or greatest aspirations are. I'm getting dry in the mouth here. Throat. You can't even cough nowadays. I'd be concerned. Trust me, y'all, I don't have it. In any respect, I think that's how I think about it. And I ask myself, what am I doing to make sure that my brim is filled? That the fishbowl, my brain, is inundated with the red marbles, right? So some of the things that I do, and I'm being redundant here, is I end the day and I start the day thinking about what are my goals? What are my objectives? What are my affirmations? What are the things that happen really good today? What are the things that need to happen really good tomorrow, right? What are those top 3 things I need to do that make the biggest difference in my life in terms of building myself or building on myself? What are those KPIs or the top things I need to do in order to ensure that I'm also productive, right? And then for me, I have my journal. I have it on my iPad. I have those things displayed on my computer. One of my contact managers that I utilize reminds me, and I set it purposely to remind me almost every 2 to 3 hours about these things, right? And that is how I systemically make sure that I'm looking at my goals, that I'm looking at the things that matter the most, right? And I'm mindful of that, because not only do you need to do it in the morning and the evening, but you have hours in between then to get distracted. So for me, I have it in my phone. My affirmations are actually my screensaver. My goals are my screensaver. So every time I look at my phone, I have to log in, get past the lock screen. But the first thing I'm looking at is actually my goals and objectives.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever that may be for you. I tell people the simpler, the better.
Yeah.
Right? Just make sure it's prominently displayed in when you go brush your teeth. Make sure that you're able. Here's the thing. With the people I work with, I tell them, look, I should be able to call you up or walk past you at the mall. Well, not at the mall anymore. Walk past you at the park or at a restaurant or down the street. And if I were to challenge you to be able to put your hands on your goals and objectives and affirmations within 10 seconds, you should be able to do it within 10 seconds.
Yeah.
If you can't do it within 10 seconds, you're not doing it right. Right? And that way it makes sure that the world's agenda and all these distractions and everybody else's agenda is not what's really determining your actions, not really determining your emotions, not really determining, quite frankly, the trajectory that you're on. That you are truly being the captain of your ship. You are the creator. You're the curator of your life, right? And that's what I think about or at least that's how I conceptualize not allowing yourself to be distracted. You want to be distracted actually by your things, not everybody else's.
Yeah, that's important.
So
when I think of like one big takeaway, if someone's at the end of this video, right, or they're getting towards the end, but if one big takeaway that I think that people could, for me, my big one that I would like to impart is, take a look at what's on your agenda today, what's on your agenda tomorrow, what is on your plate over the next week, 2 weeks that you have, and ask yourself, are these things that are going to move my business forward? Or is this just busy work for the sake of busy work? Right. And take a really hard look at that and be really honest about it. There are things that we convince ourselves are going to help us and help our business and whatnot, but really, really ask yourself if it's going to, right? And if it's not just busy work. And if it is, get rid of that, right? Or find a tool that can do that, find a person who can do that if you have the financial ability to do that.
Yeah.
Or shift that or adjust what that task is that it can be more impactful for you. Sometimes we get through the motions of doing things and we don't take a moment to look at what we're doing enough critically to see if it feels like it's working. And if you've gotten to the end of this video, I would argue that maybe you're thinking about that and thinking about maybe what you're doing isn't working right now. So this is a good, every day is a good time to reassess.
Yes, I agree 100%. Thinking about a couple business mentors have shared stuck with me is, and we're all guilty of this to one point to another. We overestimate what can be done in the short term and underestimate what can be done long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? If you are listening to this and you said, you know what, that strategy makes sense. Well, I'm going to utilize that tool. I'm going to utilize that approach. Look, these things are not going to change your life overnight.
Right.
They're not. It's skilled trade. And it's going to be difficult at first to acculturate a new habit or a new system because you're exercising muscles that you may not have utilized before. So that means you got to be prepared to go to the gym and get sore, or you're going to be sore. You're not going to do these things. It's going to be inconvenient. But we also know part of what's required to be successful as an entrepreneur, the reason why we are successful is we do the things that other people don't want to do, right? Successful entrepreneurs do the inconvenient things that other people don't want to do. And this is part of that deal, right? And just know that you don't have to get 20% better today. If you get 1% better every single day, at the end of 3 months, you're 90% better. If you get 1% better every week, you're 52% better. Imagine what kind of person you'd be a year from now if you were 52% more productive, 52% smarter, 52% able to accomplish more, right? So don't underestimate what you can accomplish over the long term. Understand entrepreneurship is a long-term game. This is not a hustle, right? You know, it's all about understanding that in the beginning, you're not going to get paid for a lot of things. So later on, you get paid for things you no longer have to do, right? But you got to be willing to pay this price in the beginning.
Yeah.
So those are kind of like a synopsis of my thoughts as I'm thinking about the conversation we're having now and what I would hope people would take with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a topic that never gets too old to talk about, right? We're always at a point in our journey where it's good to have those discussions. So I'm glad we did that today.
Yes.
Thank you, Next Op fam, for watching. If you, we'd love for you to share your thoughts and comments here as well. What action are you going to take? What are you going to change? What are you going to adjust? What are you doing that really works well for you that you'd love to share with others? Because that helps too, for us all to learn. So thank you all again. We will see you next week. And that's it for today. Bye-bye.